questions I get is, how fat should I get them? How much fat should I put on them? These guys judge a lot. Let's ask them.
The biggest thing to me is on fat. I mean, just like Brad pointed on there, is just being able to figure out who your judge is and going with what your judge is going to accept. I mean, there's a lot of judges that will accept a little bit more fat, and if you're not fat enough for those judges, you're going to get outmatched. You're going to get, they're not going to be as smooth looking. If you can keep those sheep, or they're just right there on the edge, like Brad pointed out, that if you can keep them on the edge of being just fat enough, but just lean enough for who's judging. Different judges going to go on different conditions. There's, like Flynn is probably one of the ones that's probably trying to take it back as much as anybody, as far as trying to get them leaner, trying to keep them as raw as you can, but still keep them fresh and lots of one shape and lots of rack shape. But you've got to be able to keep those sheep to where the judges that you've got coming to you, you've got to keep them as fresh and as fat as what they'll let you have them. So we'll pass it on to Matt and let him have an opinion.
Thanks, Ty. I kind of agree with you. I think you have to fit the judge as to where you're going, but as a judge going into shows, you want those things to look smooth and you want them to look ready. My idea of the ideal fat thickness is where they don't look fat as they walk around and they don't handle soft. And understandably feeding them in a different way, in different directions, feeding different kind of protein levels and different kind of fat levels, you're going to get a hard versus a softer fat and the way you exercise and things like that. And I think you can push the limits as far as having 3/10 to 3500s. And back when we judged in college, they were trying to do the 15 to 2/10. I think that's kind of out of the water now. We're getting these sheep a little fatter. And on the good side of that, I think it's making us make better females, because those ones that are going back are easier keeping. And also these ones that we're putting into the food chain after they go to these big shows are a lot better in terms of cooler life, and they're doing a lot better there. So I think that's a good thing that we're getting them a little bit fatter. But on the top side of that, getting them out of the realm of acceptability, I think there is, they do get too fat. But like I said, if they look right and they handle right, I don't think they're too fat, if that makes sense. I mean, I think there's a point there where you have to kind of make a judgment call, but like all of us, it sort of shows, and you have to kind of make that opinion on your own. So we kind of go from there, and that's just how it is when we get in the ring. But the fat deal is kind of up in the air still, but I like them a little bit fatter, and I like them to have a little bit of cover and a little bit of doability, because I think that makes those females better. And when we make our living raising these things, we got to have a little bit better deal with females.
I totally agree with Matt and Ty on finish or condition on market lambs. One to tie in a little bit on the last 10 or 15 years. I know in California 15 years ago, Greg Ahart was running Superior and still does. And the market lambs that were coming in from our shows were too lean, not much carcass quality. They changed from the Danish style system, which is group 1s and group 2s to group 3s, to basically market ready 1 and market ready 2. And basically a market ready 1 was of above average conformation, but in order for you to make the sale, you had to look like you were market ready and ready to eat. So my point to it is in California, I don't know if we changed the total type of the sheep, but I know that we changed. I know if you talk to Greg Ahart, he would tell you that he still thinks that we've got more improvements to do, but as an overall quality and as a judge, judging a few of those county fairs, I see a lot more lambs that meet the standards of what you'd say is market readiness. So I think we've made good strides there. That was one thing that I thought that Superior, because they buy the lambs, has done a nice job in changing the way we I'm lost for words. Change the way we graded them, and it all become our market rating. So that's been a good thing. Now it brings up to some of us think that some of these lambs are too fat, and fat thickness is important. There's no doubt. I hope it's not a total. I think you sure hate to beat a good one because it's a little too fat or a little too lean. You know, when I watch him walk in, I try to make it pretty easy. If he's muscular and he's fresh and looks like I can put a fork in him, he looks market ready to me. So I don't try to make it, you know, too rocket science. I learned that from my father-in-law. He's a Portuguese man from the Azores. He came over here with 4 kids, and then had 2 children over here. And I had 2 market hogs. The kids had to go to the county fair, and I was giving them all these supplements, you know, and trying to change things up. And he was outside one day, and I said, "Hey, Pa, what do you think? That one's ready to eat. Now it needs 2 more weeks." And I thought, you know what? He keeps things pretty simple. You know what I mean? Don't make it so hard. So I think sometimes, though, in finish, for me as a judge, sometimes a sheep in a hard brace, it's funny where one will walk in and I'll go, he's a little too fat. And then we'll put him in a hard brace and I'll go, he's acceptable. And then all of a sudden we'll walk him again and go, why is that one fat one in the top 5? You know what I mean? So I think sometimes it's important to, you know, look at fat thickness in relation to muscle content that's on the sheep. I mean, sometimes Angus and Hereford steers have less fat to look market ready than maybe a limousine steer. So sometimes the muscle shape of these sheep that represent different genetics, they might need more cover to make them look like they're more market ready. And some lambs maybe need a higher protein. So I think I know in California we're a lot better off than where we were, and definitely Greg Ahart will tell you a fat lamb is a lot better than one that's too lean. So again, I think fat thickness is a part of the puzzle, and as long as they look muscular and fresh and ready to eat, I think that's important.
So those guys had a really good discussion, but while they were discussing, Brian and I had a quick conversation that I think is worthy of the audience, and I do think that really the judge is trying to decide if it's mostly red or mostly white, right? If he's mostly red, he's a good one. If he's mostly white, he's not good. And I think we get concerned with whether that sheep's too fat or not, and really the ultimate question is he mostly red or mostly white? Does everybody understand what mostly red means? It means when you cut that bugger open, there's a lot of red, okay? And I think sometimes, you know, we as feeders or folks that try to raise sheep and feed sheep competitively, sometimes we have one that's not quite good enough, and our ultimate deal then is okay, we feed him to a certain fat level and we try to make that guy believe he is red when really he's white. And so sometimes that comes back to beat us when you get a guy like Clint Cummings that says, "Hey boys, nice try," and he's mostly white. And so I don't know that whether we sit there and determine whether that sheep's too fat or not, because at the end of the day, most sheep are not too fat to eat. But understand that when you look at that critter and you watch him either walk in the gate or you put your hands on him, is he mostly red or mostly white? And then that becomes a judge's discretion. And then just like Mr. Riley and I discussed, sometimes judges, and we're breeders the same way, if he's really, really, really good, it's okay if he's a little too fat, because he's really, really good. And sometimes if his hind leg's off or maybe his shoulder blade's not right, it's kind of easy to put that sheep forth because he's too fat.